Welcome to the School of Athens by Estelle and Leah.
Making philosophy more accessible to younger people.
Hi guys, welcome to this first episode of our podcast.
To remind you guys, I'm Estelle.
And I'm Leah.
And we're doing existentialism today.
Yeah, exactly. Because Estelle and I, as you know, maybe if you listen to the first, to the intro episode, we met at the summer school and there we took a course in existentialism. And so now we're experts.
We know so much, so we're here to teach you guys.
Exactly.
So what is existentialism? It's like this movement, I guess, on like why we exist, and like it's on human existence, basically. Mm-hmm. And it's also one of the things that I was most interested in starting philosophy, because I was like, why am I here? We all die. Like I was having those nihilistic thoughts. It's associated with 19th and 20th European philosophers. So Leah and I, we have like a debate on who the biggest existentialist philosophers are.
I mean, I guess like this debate is quite universal, but we don't agree on like who's the it girl of existentialism or like the main character of existentialism. I think it's Kierkegaard, because I think he's the most existentialist writer. I think he really gets to or at least gets an aspect of human existence that no other philosopher really captures. But
for me, at least when I first started existentialism, I thought it'd be Sartre, and I mean I don't know much about Jean-Paul Sartre. I don't even know how to say his name, to be honest.
This French name, the name, of course, of a famous French philosopher from history. So in France, it is said as Sartre, as in Jean-Paul Sartre.
But like, I always thought it'd be him and Nietzsche, who's my favorite guy.
Wait, sorry, actually, did you read La Nausée by Sartre, or did you read anything by Sartre?
No, although okay. I did like associate his name with existentialism, and also Simone de Beauvoir, feminist. Let's go.
Also, by the way, you obviously know that they were like kind of dating. We can talk about that later.
I think that's really cute. De Beauvoir, she actually like, I'm pretty sure she criticizes Sartre a lot.
Slay! Right? No, I really like their relationship, because I don't know, it tells like it's so existentialist, because they're dating, right? And then he wants to like have this like new approach to dating, or try out like being with other people at the same time, but having her as like his priority, and it just doesn't work out, right? The search for how to do something, how to live, and like failing at it. I don't know. I really like that.
Yeah, because I listened to this episode on Simone de Beauvoir, actually, and she sort of talks about this ambiguity of existence, right? Like this discomfort in life, which is like the whole thing about existence, and it's like this state of constant tension between. She talks about between the subject and the object. The subject is sort of like the observer, and taking life in your own hands. What's that phrase? Like seize the day, and object is like the one being observed and being sort of like, I don't know, more pushed around and stuff. And Simone de Beauvoir, she actually criticizes Sartre in leaning too much in the subject, in doing like seizing the day. But she talks about like how not everything is possible. Like we have to be more realistic, I guess, but we also can't lean too much towards the object. It's like this state of tension between the subject and the object. That's like the key for her. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's so interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah. No, I guess, but Sartre, like I haven't read any of his like real philosophy. I only read his novel La Nausée, and also his play No Exit.
Oh yeah.
Did you read that?
No, but in philosophy A level, we sort of talked about it briefly when we do like death and afterlife, because he says like hell is other people. So we talked
Mhm.
about it briefly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think in what like I find interesting is that he's not even super nihilistic, I think. He's not saying that there's no meaning in the world. I think he's just saying that it's super difficult to find it or
No.
um yeah, I don't
Talking
know.
about like nihilism, I mean, like a lot of people associate, I think, Nietzsche with like nihilistic views.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
I guess he is like a lot of people think he's pessimistic, but I really love Nietzsche. His purpose is to spread a more positive message in the end because he talks about fighting this inner struggle and trying to overcome it. And I think that's more optimistic than pessimistic.
What
What
are
do
your
you
like
think?
top three like Nietzsche or ideas, you know? What are your top three
Um,
Nietzsche?
that's kind of difficult, but I guess when at the course we look we learned from Luke this whole idea of guilt being this sense of debt between like the creditor and the
Yeah.
debtor, I think.
Hmm.
Um, I thought that was really interesting and how this like evolution of guilt at first is sort of was stemmed from this physical violence, this punishment that comes in a physical violent form, like I'll torture you if you, I don't know, don't fulfill the promise. Whereas like now in our modern day society, we obviously wouldn't like kill you because you promised to not eat the chocolate and you did. Like, I'm not going to kill you over that. So that sort of turned into guilt, I think is what he said.
And do you agree? Do you think we live in a world where we are so like so guilt or we feel so guilty all of the time or for things that we shouldn't really feel guilty for? Like, do you think that?
Um, I think this guilt, because Nietzsche says how he said that it hasn't always been that. It's sort of
Mhm.
only like developed. But I'm not sure about that because I feel like guilt is something that's so innate in us. It's like really linked with conscience. We could talk about how conscience is innate or not, but
Mhm.
it's connected to societal expectations, but also with like in religion,
Mhm.
if we feel guilt because we know that God is seeing is on he sees everything, he knows
Mhm.
everything, and
Yeah.
that sort of turn into this sense of guilt. But with like rising atheism, I don't
Mhm.
know, like I think he says that this is becoming even a bigger problem because
Says that in the end we owe to somebody who doesn't exist or we feel guilty for nothing really because we do feel this, yeah, we do feel guilty, but we don't know who we feel
yeah,
guilty for, you know, because we don't believe or we, I mean, as a society don't believe in God anymore, and then
yeah,
yeah,
and it's like
a
it's
problem.
interesting how even sometimes when you do a seemingly like good thing, you can
Yeah.
still feel guilty for it. Because 'cause also like some people say like, do you ever do a thing that's not selfish? Because even when you do something that's like
Yeah.
morally right, like what if you did it for others to think that you're a good person? Like
Mhm.
it's
Like
if
kind
anything,
of the root of what Nietzsche is trying to say, right? That morality just doesn't make sense.
yeah.
That it's just a questionable system.
Hmm. Let's talk about Kierkegaard, your guy.
Okay, my guy. So why I think that Kierkegaard is so impressive and amazing, is that I don't know, I just think he's so unique and obviously mad, but I read like we obviously both read his work Fear and Trembling, and there he kind of presents this idea that where he retells the story of Abraham, who he's a figure of the Bible, and he is told by God to sacrifice his son, and then his son Isaac, and then when he's ready to do it, God tells him not to do it. You know, that it was only a test of faith if he would actually do it or not. And Kierkegaard retells the story and says that this moment of faith in which Abraham was ready to even sacrifice his son, and he went against all the moral standards or against all his beliefs that he held before, that is basically the moment of real faith, because even though he knows that he's doing something wrong, he still does it. Kierkegaard calls it the virtue of the absurd, that he's doing something completely wrong, but in the moment it's right because of faith. And I just love this extremely individual aspect of his philosophy, because in the end, in his philosophy, it's about the individual being more important than the society, that you can be right, or that you are basically the entire existence in this moment. And that I just think it's so beautiful. And it doesn't have to be religious, I think, because it's not only the win of the religious over the moral, so that he's having faith over a moral standard. I think it's just saying something about how we live in general.
Because we started the course with this passage, and at first I was like, oops, I chose the wrong course. This is not what I like. This is not what I wanted to learn. This is so faith focused. And I guess that's also a lot of people criticize Kierkegaard for him having such a focus on religion, but it's also not. It has everything to do with religion, but it's also got everything to not do with, it's also something more.
Yeah, exactly. I don't believe in God, but I think what he describes as the divine, as this force, it's more of a, not a magical thing, but something that really describes in a way.
Yeah.
And also I like how he, I don't know, his approach to just being desperate or being in a state of pain as something that's very crucial to the human experience. I think it's so true, and he presents his thoughts really nicely. But he's such a crazy person though.
Yeah, I think he is definitely more than a lot of people think of him. But I guess I don't like him as much as you do. And I learned a bit more about him. He has these 3 values, I think, and he uses this metaphor of a lily and a bird to illustrate his values. And I think the first one is the value of silence, and this one I sort of agree with, because my mum has always done meditation and stuff like that, and he talks about Kierkegaard talks about how noise, he doesn't really like noise, and but for him, I guess this is also the part linked to religion. He said that silence is prayer. Because he said the value is in not talking but listening, but I thought it would a counter could be if everyone were silent, there'd be nothing to listen to, unless he would say is listen to the voice of God, but also what if the voice of God is delivered by human voices as well? I don't know. I thought that was quite interesting.
I think silence in the sense of taking a moment or going away from maybe the public realm in a sense, from society, being in your own world for a minute. I think that's extremely important, but in the sense of just listening and not speaking. I think listening is very important, but it's not really not important in the sense that I think Kierkegaard's philosophy is saying, I think discovering the world in a Kierkegaardian sense doesn't really mean discovering what others think about the world, but about your discovering your individual. But also one interesting thing about Kierkegaard is that most of his books he writes under pseudonyms, right?
Yeah,
so that we should give a little bit of background about his situation. So basically he lives in in Copenhagen, right? In the 19th century, I think, or the 18th century. We have to cut this out and then put the right part in, because it's embarrassing if we don't. I think he lived in Copenhagen in the 19th century, and basically Copenhagen back then was really small, so there weren't a lot of people at all, and he was in the small town where everybody knew everybody, and everybody was super religious, and obviously Kierkegaard's religious, but he criticized the church a lot as well.
Actually, sorry, because I think that's also linked to his value of silence, because he had a problem with the church of his time, because I think they described God and the kingdom of God with really fancy words and just it's really unnecessary descriptions, and he thinks stripping that down, I think, is the way to go.
Yeah, exactly. But Kierkegaard then he finds this girl and he really likes her. Her
Oh
name's Regine.
yeah, I forgot about
You
that.
remember? Yeah.
That's
So
so cute.
actually, yeah, I loved talking about her in the class. It was so funny.
Oh my God, remind me what happened between them.
Yeah, so he really likes her, right? He has a huge crush on Regine.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and Regine, she wants to marry him, obviously, but then they're about to marry, and I think they're engaged even, and then he's like, "No, sorry, I can't do it." And then the question is like, "Why? We love each other so much, and it's like mutual and whatever." And then he says, "Because, just because, like I will ruin your life. There is no reason, but I just know that I will ruin your life." And that's kind of also again with the moment of like having faith instead of going or following the rules, right?
I
There
was
he
so mad at that.
yeah, but he's like, I don't know. Yeah, I would be so mad, like if I were Regine, but then he just decides not to marry her, and then he acts crazy, like in front of the whole like super small town for the rest of his life, and so that she's not like blamed for being weird, and
That
for
doesn't
destroying the
affect her.
engagement.
No.
Because, sorry?
So that it doesn't affect the girl, right?
Yeah, so that she has like a good reputation, and he's actually super sweet because he then just acts crazy for the rest of his life. He like does weird stuff in front of people, and then he writes like so many books. Like you can look it up. He writes really a lot of books under
Oh,
pseudonyms actually. Like
look,
she
that's
broke his heart, but like also he broke hers. So I don't know.
like, oh, who
Yeah,
did
right.
she marry in the end? Do you know?
Sorry,
Who did is Regime?
is Nyash. She married another guy. Yeah, it's super sad. He talks about this relationship so much in his later work, right? So he always says, or not really directly, but indirectly, he always speaks of, for example, the Knight of Faith. Yeah, who believes in his love with the princess, but he does the movement of the absurd. So
Hmm.
he doesn't so he doesn't get with her, and I think that's really sweet that he's so troubled by that relationship actually.
There's like the Night of Faith. There's the Night of Infinite Resignation. Is that what it was called? And what was the story again with these nights?
Yeah, so the Knight of Faith is basically first he's just a knight, right? And then he becomes the Knight of Resignation, because that's also something very important for Kierkegaard, that a crucial part of faith is doubt. So first he has to become the Knight of Infinite of Resignation, so he has to believe that what he is doing or what he's about to do is absolutely wrong, and that or for example, that there's no way that he'll ever get the princess, because there's, for example, just like a social circumstance that
Yeah.
prohibits them being together. So he has to first of all accept that it's completely wrong, and then he has to make the movement of infinity, I think. Basically means that he accepts this wrongness and decides to have faith anyways. Like with Abraham, the movement of faith, he has to believe in the absurd basically, and then he becomes the Knight of Faith. Yeah.
So like these stories all sort of show this like leap of faith, this whole thing where you're doing like the most morally wrong thing, like the most societally unacceptable thing, but you do it because you know like it's the right
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. And that's why doubt is so important for him, because he says you have to question everything, like every belief you've ever held or that you have been taught, because you might actually be right, and so you
And
just
that's
have to.
also the thing about philosophy, like doubting everything that you think is right.
Yeah, and that's like what we both love about philosophy, right? That
Yeah.
you really have to question everything.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Talking about like Kierkegaard's life, let's switch to my guy, Nietzsche.
Yeah. talked about him a lot now.
Yeah, I don't know much about his romantic life, but I think the most interesting part about his life is sort of near the end. A lot of people know that he lost his mind, but like why we don't know. But basically, before he lost his mind, like his cognitive abilities were always a bit whiffy woffy, but basically he decided to live by himself in the mountains, I think, to like do the philosopher stuff, contemplate life or whatever. But apparently, like one day he came upon this a horse who was which is like this horse was like getting beaten by someone, and this is like the key moment of his life. And Nietzsche like suddenly like jumps before the horse and tries to protect it, and like he like embraces the horse, and he's crying so hard. He's like in an emotional state like never seen before. He's in pain for the horse, and he's crying so hard that he lost consciousness actually. And when he finally regained consciousness, he lost all cognitive ability. He's basically lost his mind, and that's like the end of his sanity. I find that really interesting, and also one of like the biggest things that draws me to Nietzsche.
It sounds super interesting.
Yeah, because like last time you said like Nietzsche didn't seem like an animal supporter or like
Yeah, because I mean, part of what Nietzsche says is that there's this not natural order, but that everybody has these natural abilities, right? So that some people are just stronger than others and some people are just weak. At least from his reflections on what that says about morality, I got the feeling that he doesn't really have sympathy with the weak that much. So I was kind of surprised that he would protect, or that we would see the need to protect something that's weak from basically what its fate would be, you know?
No, I think Nietzsche actually he really sympathizes with I think he does sympathize with the weak. I think he knows the importance of nature. He's quite in tune with like this sort of hierarchy in society and in nature. He actually in his philosophy he talks about this like master and slave morality that we did learn in the course briefly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's like kind of what I was trying, or what I think is so different, like, you know, in that moment when he saves the world from the rest of what he's saying, because I don't know how he says that weak people are the only ones who fall into the trap of religion, you know, and how people who have the strength to not believe in God. So maybe we should give like a little bit of context here, right?
Nietzsche's basically quite opposite to Kierkegaard in terms of like God and religion. He famously said God is dead, and everyone thinks, I mean, he is quite anti-religion because he thinks that you're being like manipulated by like this religious beliefs. I guess that sort of makes him with like the feeling of guilt because of like God, how like
you're being guilt tripped into religion.
Yeah, exactly. And
that basically some people who are strong and understand or can face the nihilistic world and can face that there is no reason or no God and so on, that they take advantage of the weak and basically use their fear for their own good.
But like even with a godless society, he sort of talks about how we still live like a constant life of like denial, and this is sort of almost a new kind of existentialism without God, because we're in this like disinterested universe. I think he said, like these like bad desires that make you feel guilty are become a part of you, and you like you wonder, you're like, oh, why do I want these things that I shouldn't want, and then you like internally punish yourself with guilt.
Exactly. Maybe also related to guilt, what do you think that existentialism is so important, especially in the 20th century? Because I feel like there are reasons, you know, with kind of the wars and modernity as like as something so overwhelming for people. I think there are like connections to why existentialism became so strong as a movement then.
In this society, with more and more people, like our population, this teenager population, we're all like so immersed in like social media with like trends and stuff. And I guess there's like less people who are like religious. And I think we're more immersed within ourselves with like each other's opinions of each other's. In a way, maybe it's like harder with like this feeling of guilt and self-consciousness. Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like because these questions, like, are we guilty to, or what role does morality play in our lives, kind of. I think that's so important kind of after this whole social restructure that happened in the 20th century, But I'm just seeing that we have like 6 minutes left right now.
Yeah, we're gonna have to wrap it up. And I hope you guys enjoyed listening to us as much as we enjoyed talking about our favorite people.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, if you have any suggestions or like tips for us, we are super happy to hear them.
Excited to see you next week.
Wait, do we know what we're going to talk about next week?
Yeah, I was literally going to ask you, but I don't know. We could talk more about existentialism and like go into more detail, or we could like do a different topic.
Maybe we could talk about the School of Athens because that's kind of our like
okay,
name, right? So I mean, I can just about like read or like listen to a couple of podcasts on these 3 individuals, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. So
yeah,
it's in English, right? Okay.
Yeah. So look forward to Greek philosophers for next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Slay!